Okay. Hope everyone's doing well today. Hope everyone had a good day at work or wherever you were today. Um, I'm going to just play around, just wasting some time. It's a good day at work today. I'm working on some custom PowerShell scripts and some monitoring um, to monitor some of our security software and maintain our updates and patching and things like that. And just a fun day. Getting ready for a upcoming trip. Looks like I'm going to get to go to our office in the Empire State Building in New York City in, I don't know, maybe 3, maybe 4 weeks. So we're just trying to get everything prepped for that trip and make sure that while we're there that we're ready and prepared and can use the time as effectively as possible. And Bobow Games, he's on Twitch and TikTok, and he plays this game. This is wormate.io, and he's actually good at the game. I'm pretty awful. I've broken into the top 100. Actually, I think I got into about 30th place at one point last night. But I think he's on like 40 straight days of at least getting a first place every day. See, I mean, that was just atrocious. But it's a calming game for me. It's not one where I'm just trying to. Oh, it's an ad. You gotta love that. Goodbye, Mr. Ad. Man, that'll destroy your vibe in a minute, won't it? A loud ad just popping right in there. What was I saying? Oh yeah, Bobow Games. He's on Twitch and TikTok. He introduced me to this game. He plays it. He's what you'd call a professional. But I just find it calming. It's just relaxing to play. And there's just something about the simplicity of it. There's no shooting people. You're just a little worm eating, as he would say, eat and grow strong, my friend. So, in fact, his stream will be starting on Twitch and at least on Twitch. I know he'll be on Twitch at 7 o'clock. He streams every single day at 7 o'clock, and I really enjoy watching his stream. His voice is so calming and just a generally nice guy. He's got a great following. He's definitely the definition of a streamer, but very chill, very relaxed. And if you haven't seen him, check him out. Like I said, he's on Twitch, he's on TikTok. It's Bobow Games. That's BOBOWGAMES. And he's a lot more entertaining than I am. I'm just sort of doing this for a break after a long day at work. Very grateful for my job. I actually get to work with a good friend of mine who's also a great mentor of mine. And it's always great to be able to find something that you can do and bring value and feel like you make a difference. So, ooh, look at that candy. So this is what we're really looking for. We love it when people die and we get to eat up all of their candy. That's a good way to start your game right there. Yep. Just enjoying my trip around the wormate. Oh, look, somebody else died. We get to eat their candy. The name of the game is Eating Candy, or food, or whatever you want to call it. It's another streamer, Windstream, that's also a Warmate IO streamer. That whereas Bobow is very chillaxed, I would say that Windstream is more actively entertaining. So he's more high energy. Just it's just two different guys with different personalities. They're both really good at the game, really entertaining, and this guy, if I went after that, he was gonna probably try and headshot me. The way you die in this game is if someone whacks you in the head in the right direction. It's called a headshot, and they'll kill you. Or if you run into somebody else's worm, that'll kill you. So your goal is to just stay in your own spot. And once you get really good, you can get good at like what they call wrapping people. That's getting in a circle around someone and wrapping closer and closer and tighter until they can't escape the confines of your constriction. And they die, and you get to eat their candy. So it's a pretty cool game. Just like I said, very relaxing, very calming. And I have some calming music, some classical playing in the background because I'm not looking for a high energy night tonight. I'm just looking to chill and relax after a good day at work. I got to eat Broncos Mexican with my wife and my daughter and her best friend tonight after we got off of work. That was a super great surprise that my wife had for me. And it's one of my favorite things. I get excited about Broncos. How simple can life be that one of your greatest joys is some good Mexican food? But that's definitely my life. Give me some good Broncos, and I'll be set for a while. Yeah, I'm just sort of exploring a little bit, seeing what's out here. Just gobbling stuff up. I am in 132nd place right now. So that's just in this lobby. So there's over 100 people playing Wormate in this lobby right now. Oh, you know what? I wonder if this guy's got me wrapped. He may. Yeah, he may. It looks like he does. So see how this guy is completely circled around me the whole way? That's what I was talking about wrapping earlier. So, yeah, I don't think this guy's really after me. I was probably just in his way. He's a bigger worm. He's probably got bigger fish to fry than the likes of me. But if you do get wrapped, your best bet is to make yourself big. Just take up as much space as you can. Ooh, I messed up there. So yeah, so I had a little bit of lag, a little lag bump there, and made me run into him. Whenever I've got the music going and streaming and all of that, it slows the game down a little bit. I get these little lag bumps that can put me at greater risk than when I'm not streaming. So I'm just gonna try again. Let's play a little bit more. This is enjoyable. I'm having fun with this. So let's keep going. Ooh, look, coins. Coins help you buy skins and clothes, and you see my cute little face with the glasses. That's sort of like an upgrade. As you get more coins, you can buy more things. And I bought the little popsicle skin last night. That was a nice little splurge. I think it was about 1,500 coins or 1,200 coins or something. I just started playing like 3 or 4 days ago. So, like I said, I couldn't even tell you what most of the things give you. I think that gives you speed boost, maybe. That would be my guess. I guess I really probably need to read the rules so that I know what I'm playing. I know how to play, but I'm just enjoying the calm of playing the game, honestly. Not trying to be competitive at it or become a pro. It's just nice to have a break. And tonight, the girls are with Mom at a, they're getting ready for a pageant thing for next year. So they're finding out about that. So at the moment, I have the house all to myself. And it's quiet, and it's calm, and the dogs aren't barking, and the girls aren't screaming, and so yeah, I'm enjoying the quiet and the calm. It's not before the storm, and I don't want to give you the wrong idea. I really enjoy having them around because they're so much fun. But man, it is nice when you just get a break. You can just sort of chill, do your own thing. Oh, I like this song. I like the way it came in. Yep, and I'm just eating, just rolling around. You saw that big blue worm. He's a big boy. I'm just a little inchworm at this point. So I'm not really a threat to anybody. So they'll pretty much leave me alone for the most part. Oh no! Big blue worm. So, and I've got another guy up here. Oh no, big blue worm, please don't come get me. I'm not trying to mess with you. Yeah, as long as you don't run into them, you stay alive. And if someone hits you, if you hit like head to head, if you hit their body, you're the one that dies. Or if they hit your body, they die. But if you hit head to head, there's certain angles at which you can hit someone head to head, and that's called a headshot. And the people who are really good at it sort of know and have a great understanding of exactly when and how you hit somebody for it to kill them and not you. Me, I have a general idea. But like I said, I've only been playing for about 2 or 3 days, and headshots are a little bit more complicated than just the basic sliding around and eating. So for the most part, I'm sticking to sliding around and eating. Oh, you know what? I think I left my stream up for a couple of channels that I didn't even want it streaming on. So I may actually, you know what? If it goes out on LinkedIn, maybe some of us who work and need a good break after work, maybe they'll appreciate it as well. So I'll leave it up. I'll leave it streaming the way that it is. Work people need a break too. Plus, like I said in my notes, I may do some PowerShell scripting a little bit later. And that's definitely work related. So as you could see, I sort of ran into that guy. That's why I died. Ooh, that guy's trying to kill me. Yeah, you can sort of turbo boost a little bit using the mouse or the spacebar key on your keyboard. I'm just not in a fast, aggressive mood tonight. I'm just sort of chilling and relaxing. I definitely think I may play around with some PowerShell in a little bit, though. That would be fun. I've been writing some new PowerShell scripts and playing around with some new functionality. Plus, I think I had a couple of things that I needed to pay attention to tonight. For those of you in the IT world, today is the second Tuesday of the month, second Tuesday of January, and that means it's Patch Tuesday. Microsoft sends out their security patches and updates on the second Tuesday of the month at 10 p.m. Pacific, which is 1 p.m. Eastern, and everybody starts getting their Windows updates. So we try and keep everything up to date and protected and patched from vulnerabilities, and we've got some of our less critical machines immediately patching tonight, so I may play around with my PowerShell scripts and for fun and for maybe some business purpose a little bit later. Maybe able to tweak my script, make it a little better, improve upon the greatness that it is. Maybe share it with some other IT folks. Maybe you guys would see it and enjoy using it in your environment or modifying it to your own preferences. That's what I love about PowerShell and scripting and sharing in a good community is you can take and build off of each other's ideas. Yeah, at this point I'm sort of out here by myself. Not a lot of people around me on the map, and I'm just floating around. Not really of any mentionable size at this point. Now, if I was actually trying to get points and build myself up, I would probably look for some bigger worms, try and hang out near them, because you can sort of hang out near them until somebody dies, eat their candy from their death, and you'll grow a lot quicker that way. But like I said, I'm just sort of chilling tonight. I'm enjoying the the relaxation. And I'm not really trying to get any certain scores or perform. I'm just enjoying the game for the sake of the game. Yeah, I like that one. When you hit that one, it sort of zooms you out, lets you see more of the map. Makes it a little... Oh, man, that was a headshot. That guy intentionally targeted my head, zoomed right through me, and killed me. So when I was talking earlier about headshots, that's what they look like. So what I think I'm going to do for a moment here is... I'll turn my music down for a moment. And instead of continuing here, I'm going to bring up my Powershell. One thing that is important with this is with this script we're going to be running, we definitely will need to be running as administrator in ISE. Powershell ISE is a nice tool to use anytime you're dealing with Powershell because it gives you some additional functionality that you don't get from just the Powershell command line. Let me move this up here. So if you're not super familiar with Powershell, Powershell is a scripting language built into Windows. There are different versions of Powershell. In fact, if you want to know which PowerShell version your machine is running, you can use $PS version table, and you can hit that, and it'll tell you your PowerShell version. If you're using like a Windows 8, or I think it's Windows 8. Yeah, Windows 8. Server 2018 R2 or below, they normally have up to PowerShell version 4. So they would say 4.0 something. But if you're running a later, newer operating system, you should have PowerShell 5.1, most likely 5 or 5.1 in place if you're pretty much patched. And there's also a PowerShell 7 that is a separate sort of a stream than this. And PowerShell 7, there are some nice things about it that, like when you kick off commands, it can truly run them as separate multitasking processes. And there's some definitely nice things about 7. But for most folks, 5 is good enough. If you do have the older Windows, there is a feature update that you can download and install, and it will bring your older Windows versions and server versions up to the PowerShell 5.1. So everything I'm going to be talking about right now that we're going to look at definitely expects this PowerShell 5.1. I'm going to open up one of my existing scripts that I've been working on. Oh, you know what? I don't have it on this machine. So what we'll do is we will just start from scratch. In PowerShell, you use the hashtag to indicate comments. So usually what I do is I'll do hashtag and then I'll do the name of my PowerShell script at the top. So if I'm going to name it, let's say Windows Update Apply Now .ps1. PowerShell scripts end with a .ps1. So then what I also usually do then is I create a history with notes about the versions. So this is going to be v1.0, and it's going to be initial script design. And today is 2023-01-10, and then I just put my initials, right? So then if I write a v1.1, I would put it right below that. I would have my initial, my notes of what I did, and then the date code and my initials, and that way everybody knows sort of the development path of this PowerShell script. I generally start off with a parameters section. And I'm going to say, in this one, what I want it to do is I'm going to want it to, first, we're going to set up parameters for sending email based on results. The only parameters I'm really going to need in this are probably related to the email. So that's what I'm thinking about from a parameter standpoint. And then I'll actually go into the action section of my script. And what I do is I like to build out a framework with comments to start out. So I know that first thing I'm going to do is get any modules necessary for my script. Okay, because there may be some commands that are not just built into the default modules that are loaded in PowerShell. I may have to go out there and get some packages to install any, actually I'm going to say get any packages / modules, install any modules necessary. The other thing that we may have to do is verify and set execution policy. Some of the things that are necessary for Windows updates will require a certain level of execution policy, and as a validation step, you might as well validate that and or change the execution policy as needed in your script rather than try and run things and get errors. So it'll be better to do this piece here at the beginning before we start getting down into here, because all of these things can be dependencies, right? Some of the commands we're going to use down here will either require that execution policy or require items to be installed. And then also, once you've installed it, what installing modules does is put the files for that module on the computer. However, whenever you're using, sorry about the dogs, I believe my wife and the girls are probably getting home, and that's why the dogs are excited. But once you have the modules installed, you also need to import them so that you can run their commands. So I'll do an import any modules necessary. So, and then that is going to be this is going to be actually my load dependencies, right? And then I will create an action section, and this is where my script will live. And then I'll have a validation component at the end, and then based on that validation, I'll have a send notifications summary as necessary. So you can see I haven't really written any PowerShell yet, but what this is going to do, if I know the framework of my script and I go ahead and in my mind build out my comments, I can then build my script components underneath each of these sections. So give me just a second. I've got to restart my other machine, which doesn't look to be happy. So I know that the execution policy, let's look at it first. So what you're doing is you're writing your script up here, but you can come down here and test things down here in your console and actively run things. So it isn't as nice as like when you're doing it in SQL Management Studio, where you can just sort of highlight the section and click run and it'll just run what's highlighted. If you click run, it's going to run the whole script. But you can copy from up here and then just paste it down in the bottom to do your testing. So that's a helpful differentiation to know about. So first thing I want to do is I want to look at get execution policy. And we'll see what my execution policy is right now. So right now, mine is set to unrestricted. So I'm going to go ahead and tell you, that is not normal. That's because I was coding earlier. Normally, your execution policy is going to be probably, well, by default, it is restricted, right? So that is, what? Oh, it would help if I could type execution policy, right? Right. So, and then let's look at the detail. So if you run this command and you haven't made any changes to Windows defaults, this is sort of what yours is probably going to look like. If you run get execution policy -list, you're going to find that these top 4 are set to undefined and that local machine is set to restricted. That is the default Windows setting. Now, for what we're going to run, we at least need the policy to be set to remote signed. Remote signed allows you to either run any local scripts that are on your local drives, not on UNC paths or web URLs or anything like that. It'll allow you to run unsigned scripts from those local paths, or it'll allow you to run signed and trusted. They have to be trusted in order to be run. They have to be signed from a trusted source based on your CA and PKI setup. I'm not going to get all into the weeds on that, but just know that if you end up wanting to run this script, you're not going to want to have your setting be restricted. And that's what we're going to actually check for. So I'm going to do an if statement. So if, right? And I'm actually building out, I'll show you another trick that I like to do, is when doing if statements, I like to go ahead and build out my structure like this. So that way I know that I have all of my bracket structure and everything in place, and I'm just going to go back and fill. And it helps keep you from forgetting to put a bracket in. So I will build out my if-else structure first, and then I'll go back and put in my components. So in this case, we're going to evaluate if get execution. Good gracious, I can't type today. Execution policy is equal to, and we want it to be equal to remote signed, right? So if it is what we want, we don't have to do anything and we don't have to set it, right? But what I like to do, which will help us with our troubleshooting, running our script, I'll just put a right host in here that'll tell me I'm going to do $get date format mmdd mmss. And then, so that's going to give me a timestamp. And hold on, I'll show you in just a second what that's going to do. I'll actually write this down in the bottom so I can explain what I'm doing here. So verified confirm, just do success execution policy verified, right? And what I'll do is I'll copy this, just like I said earlier. You can copy this section, you can then paste it down here, you can then hit enter and you'll see what it outputs. So actually I'm gonna put a dash in there. So let's try that. Let's see how that looks. See if that looks a little better. So what I've done is you can see that I've changed the format that this timestamp is using. And what I'm going to do is for all of my output to the terminal, these are just when you're running your script, letting it output information so you see what steps it's running through. By putting this date timestamp, we'll have it down here. And then also, what's nice about having this structure is if we decide to log this, log the output or anything like that, we can actually capture this and put that in a log file and output that in some manner. So that's why I like sort of doing that. So this was good. This was what we were looking for. We didn't have to make a change. The only one that let me think. I don't want to force it to be changed to remote signed if it's already unrestricted. Like, I don't want to intentionally change that. So I think I'll actually change this. So instead of just checking for what I want to check for anything that is more restrictive than remote signed, right? Yeah. So there's two levels that would be so I'm going to say if not, and I'm going to put another parentheses, if not restricted or let me think about that, because I can't bundle. I would actually, if I'm going to do that, I actually need to catch this in a variable so I don't have to run it twice. So what I'm going to do is current execution policy equals, and then I'm going to do get execution policy. And what that's going to allow me to do by putting it here instead of recreating this just as a second mirror, that way I'm only having to run my command once and put it in a variable, and I'll evaluate the variable twice. So now I'm going to say current execution policy, or okay. So those two, and then I need one around that, and then I need another one around it for the not. So I'm going to walk through this right quick and show you what I did. So I am getting the execution policy and putting it in this variable. I'll show you. If I run it, it says restricted, right? So this will now equal restricted. So then I'm looking at it, I'm saying, is that equal to restricted? Well, yes it is. Or is this, or is it, this other one is going to be all signed, right? Those are the two levels that are more restrictive than what we're looking for. If that is the case, we're going to then hit this not, right? So I led the whole thing with a not. So it's saying if not, if current execution policy is not set to restricted, or, oh gosh, that actually needs to be an and. No. See, I can't do the or there. So I need to do an and. This is getting fun. So what I'm going to have to do is I'm going to have to do my not here. All right. So if not that, and not that, then we know that we're good. So it's saying if my current execution policy is not restricted and my current execution policy is not all signed. If both of those are true, then we know that we are at least at the remote signed or unrestricted, a lower level. So then we can say, good, we've got what we need. However, if we were at the restricted or at the all signed setting, that's when we would use the set execution policy, and we would set it to remote signed, right? So this is going to be setting our, oh yeah, I'm so used to doing this in Notepad++. In Notepad++, I could indent these lines very easily. Instead, I'm going to tab them over. And you'll note that I prefer to use good indenting here. So just for visibility, this makes my comment lines more visible. Once I hit an if and I've got a sub, I'm tabbing that a level deeper so that I can just see the logic in the mapping. So along with this set statement, I'm actually going to put in the same train of thought, I'm going to put that same timestamp, but I'm going to say change execution policy set to and I'm going to actually do this current execution policy. So my output is going to say that's good, success, execution policy verified as, and it'll tell me what it is set as. If it has to change it, I'm going to say changed from current execution policy to, and then here's a little trick. I can put a $ around a get, and it will actually treat that as a inserted variable. So I am then going to do a get execution policy to show what it got set to, right? So this current execution policy will show what it was originally. I'm going to say original. Let's change all of that because that wording will be misleading. Current original. Okay, and then we'll do the same thing here. We'll change this to original. And then we shouldn't have to reuse the actual current execution policy later in our script. If I thought that I might want to indicate that somewhere else, instead of using this inline, I would have just created another variable entry here after setting to set, current execution policy equals, and I would have done another get execution policy to fill that. But I'm just intending to use this once, so to save a little bit of processing and recalling variable, I can do it all in inline, and it's a little more efficient. So change this from original, okay, to get execution policy, right? So now that we've got that written, let's test it. Right, let's walk through it and let it run. So I'm going to copy that section of code. We'll take it down here. I'm going to hit CLS so that we've got a clear screen. Let's paste it in, and then you just hit enter. And check this out. When we did the set, I'm going to actually say no. I'm going to say no. So it tried to change it, but obviously it didn't because I said no. Execution policy changed from restricted to restricted, so you can see that it didn't change it. There is an additional setting we need here. We need a confirm : $false, and that way it will not pop up that prompt. So we're going to add that. Let me copy this again, and we'll test that. And I hit enter. Uh-oh. I think there may be an additional thing. So I'm going to say no again. What I want to get to is where I don't have to have that that option. Let's see. Well, the good thing is, this is why I love ISE. If we were just in the console, we couldn't do this. But you can type any commands over here, and you can get the detail of that command. So you show details, and it's going to show me all the different parameters that I can use with it. Okay, force. That's what I needed. Yes. So I also need a force option. I'm going to show you how this works. So execution policy, if we were wanting it to be remote signed, and we wanted it It doesn't give me the option choose false. Okay, and we wanted to force it. You can click insert. And it will insert it. So you can see it has this dash force. There is no additional item that you need. I'm going to add the dash force on the end, and that should take care of it. So let's wipe this out by hitting escape. That'll get rid of anything you've typed previously that you haven't hit enter on. I'm going to copy that. We're going to paste it down here, and I believe now this should run and complete the steps as we would expect it to without any prompts. And ta-da! So it did, it ran. Here's my date time stamp. It was a change, right? Because my setting was restricted, it changed it from restricted to remote signed, right? So that's what we were expecting. Now if I were to run that again, let's copy it. Just make sure that our logic works as expected, right? So now it says instead, because we were already in remote signed, so it says success, execution policy verified as remote signed. Well, what happens if we set our execution policy? We were restricted previously, so let's do all signed. And let's do a force on that and do a confirm $ false, right? Oh, I mistyped again. I am having problems with my typing tonight. Look at that. Okay, so let's try it now. So now I should be in the all signed. Well, that is too restrictive, right? So I want to make sure that this catches that. So I can copy it, run it, and see how it behaves. We're wanting to see that change option. Yep, so it recognized it needed to be a change. That's good. Now let's run the last one. Again, remember I told you don't want your execution policy left as unrestricted. But I'm just going to set it temporarily to that for the purpose of just testing all of the logic. Right? So I'm temporarily execution policy. Force. There. So just purely to validate that if it was set that open, you don't need to change it. So we want our logic to just say success and then validate that it was already in unrestricted mode. Okay. So I want our execution policy to be remote signed. That's as loose as I want it to be. Okay, so we have our logic that is necessary for the execution policy dependency. The next thing that I know that we might need on some machines is we're going to look and we're going to see get package provider. Okay. One of the items that, and this one, we don't have it on this one. So for the Windows Updates components, one of the things that we need is NuGet. So, oh gosh, I don't have my main script to look at, but you know what? I can check right quick. I just need to see there's a certain version or later that I need, and instead of Googling for that, I think I can hop in and grab a copy of my script, and that might be the quickest way for me to validate what version of NuGet we're going to need, at least. I'd rather, walk you through and give you valid, accurate information on what's needed for this script in case anyone is sort of following along and going to use it for real life purposes. So, you know what? I might be able to find it just as fast searching this way. Let's see. Get package provider NuGet required for install module PS Windows Update. Here it is. I think this may be yes, and I do remember there was an additional requirement. When I started troubleshooting this, I found that on some systems that we needed a certain version of TLS in order to even be able to download and get the NuGet package. Hold on, let me get this typed in and then I'll explain. Set the TLS version required for downloading NuGet. This piece, I'm going to just tell you, I found it just by troubleshooting. So I tried to install the PS Windows Update module that is necessary to do the Windows Update commands. When I tried to do that, it said, hey, before you install that, you have to have NuGet. Then after I tried to install NuGet, it was failing. It was saying, hey, I can't reach that on the internet. Well, some of my machines that I was using it on did not yet have TLS 1.0 and 1.1 disabled. And on those machines, they would fail. Now, if I had used IIS Crypt and locked them down, then and to only use TLS 1.2 or higher, they were fine. But some of the machines that were not hardened yet would fail without this setting right here. So what this does is it ensures that it's going to use the TLS 1.2 for the protocol for going and fetching the NuGet component. So that is a gem. It's not friendly. It doesn't tell you, hey, this is failing because of TLS 1.1 or 1.0. I just had to fight through that and find that on my own. And I will tell you that this is very helpful, because you may find that if without this, you may run it and you find that some of your machines, the more hardened ones, you can run the modules, and then when you try and download it from a not hardened machine, it fails. So this very, very important component. So in order to install the PS Windows Updates module, there's a dependency there, and we're going to have to install the NuGet package provider before we get the PS Windows Update. So that's what we're going to do. That same article here has that command. Now, what we are going to do is, if it's already installed, we don't need it, right? Right? If it was already installed, in this case, it is not installed, right? But if it were, I don't want to go through the trouble of doing this install again. So guess what? I'm going to use some if then else logic here. Right? So I'm going to say if it is installed, you know what? I might do an if not installed. If not installed, then install. Else, I don't have to install it because it's already installed. Okay. Tab this out to where I want it. Okay, so the command to check to see if the package is already installed, I already got part of it for you down here, right? I did a get package provider. But we want to see if that NuGet one is installed. So I'm going to actually do a get dash package. Here, I'll type it up here. Get dash package provider, right? And then we're going to pipe that into where object name. See the name column here? So this says where object, and then this object, this dollar underscore essentially means current, and then dot name means the this column, right? If I wanted to evaluate version, I would put dot version. If I wanted to do dot dynamic options, I would do dot dynamic options. But we're going to do a comparison on the name, and we're going to say like instead of equals. We're going to say like star NuGet star. Right, so that's our command. And that is, I'm going to show you that we get no results right now because the package is not installed. But to compare it, we do have a package up there that's called Powershell Get. So I'm going to show you that if we were looking for Powershell Get, we would get the result, right? And if we did that, you know, that would demonstrate that yes, we did find it. So we're not finding this on this one because it's not installed yet. We want to do the install package provider. I think there's also some package provider. I think there's some confirm and force on it as well. Yes, there's a confirm and a force, yes. So we're going to do confirm $, false, and a force, right? To make sure that we don't get prompted. And then we're going to say, I'm going to use the same timestamp and commenting, similar to, okay. So, install. In this case, we're going to say NuGet needed to be installed, right? And then down here we're going to put success. NuGet was already installed, right? So there's our logic. We're going to say if the package provider If there's not a package provider that has a name that's like this NuGet, then write this statement and then install the package, right? Else, if there was, then you don't have to install it because it's already installed. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to run this because, like I said earlier, that is something that I found that is necessary if you do not have TLS 1.0 and 1.1 disabled. This does not change the setting on the computer. This only changes the setting for this communication stream here. So this, it's not like I'm permanently changing that. And I don't want to go through the trouble of evaluating whether we've got TLS 0 or 1 enabled on this machine because it's a little troublesome in PowerShell. Not worth the effort, especially since this is just a temp setting for this communication. So let's paste, let's copy this component, which should go out and get that NuGet for us. Let's test it out. It says NuGet needed to be installed, and boom, look, it went out, it fetched it, and installed it, right? So NuGet needed to be installed, it did install it. Now if I run this again, guess what? It's going to say that it was already installed. It doesn't have to do it again. That'll validate both sides of our logic, right? So this time it didn't have to install it because it was already installed. Now that we've got this piece, that was a prerequisite for going out and fetching the PS Windows Update component. So now we're going to install the PS Windows Update module, right? Now, let's see. Let's just make sure we don't see PS Windows Update. Nope, we do not have. When I do get-module, we do not have one that already is in there and imported and active that is PS Windows Update, right? So we're going to use very similar logic to up here, down here, but we're going to be doing, instead of package provider, we'll be doing module, where the name is like PS Windows Update, right? If it's missing, we're going to say install. PS Windows Update needed to be installed. And then down here, we're going to say install module. The name is going to be PS Windows Update. We leave those same confirm and force. And down here, we're going to say success. PS Windows Update was already installed, right? So that's our similar logic for just installing the PS Windows module. We'll run that same similar logic. Let's find out. Look, it needed to be installed. Well, guess what's going to happen? It's going to fetch it. Ta-da! It's going out, it's downloading and installing that package. Okay, the package is now installed, right? But look at this. The package is installed, right? But it still doesn't show up under get-module. So when you install the package, remember I said, when you install a module, it installs the files. It downloads and installs the files into your PowerShell directories. Install-module installs the files to your computer. Import.module makes that module active in your PowerShell session or your PowerShell script. So that's the next piece. Right now, it is not active yet, so we also need to import the PS Windows Update module. Okay? we're going to copy this same kind of logic. And instead of, okay, needs to be imported, right? And then instead of install module, we're going to do import module. PS Windows Update. And then we're going to say down here, was already imported. You're like, man, this is a ton of work. Well, this is for a machine that has never had these components installed. And that's where you really want to start when you're building a script, is don't assume that whatever you need will already be there. You want to make your script so that it will work in the worst of cases. Now, obviously, after we've gone through all of these steps of getting all of these components and things in place on our machine, after that, you see the next time I run it, I don't have to do these things. You do have to do the import each time, because it will not load automatically with PowerShell, but you don't have to do the NuGet. You don't have to do the TLS. You don't have to do the install module. You just have to do this import each time that you start a new session. So we're building on this logic so that this script can be used across a whole environment. So let's run this section now. And let's watch the logic happen. I'm going to do a clear screen so we have something clean to work with. And if I run it, so import module does not have a confirm option, and that's why it barked at us. So let's just look. Let's look at the details over here. It doesn't have a confirm, but it does have a force. So we're going to take this confirm component out. And that's what it said. A parameter cannot be found that matches the parameter confirm. I'm just reading my error message and then looking and seeing what makes sense, right? Now that we've cleared that out, I'm going to copy this, paste it down here, and look at that. Install. PS Windows Update needed to be imported. Well, guess what? Now it has imported it. So if I run it a second time, it should tell us that it's now already imported. Success. Was already imported. So we've checked both sides of our logic by walking down through this. Dun, 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 dun. Okay, verify execution policy. That was here, getting any packages, modules, and we installed them. Right. We imported the module that we needed. And now we're getting to our action. So what are we going to do for our action? So first, in our action section, I want to see if this machine even has any check for any missing Microsoft updates. Right? Now the cool thing is, once you have this PS Windows Update installed, it is very, very easy. It's one little command, get-windows update, right? And that will tell you any missing updates, but you have to have these components up here installed. If I get a chance, my script that I use actually uses a more complex way of doing this Windows Update check, and it actually does it at the very beginning. And the reason it does that more complex is I don't want to have to go through doing all these module installs and everything if that particular machine doesn't need Windows updates, right? So I haven't gone into this on this one because I want to sort of walk through the process. But we have to get this far before we can use this command to find out are there any missing updates. But there is a more complex way where you actually build a session that communicates with Windows Update and checks that way, that doesn't require this PS Windows Update module. But it is a lot more complex and a lot harder to deal with, especially piping things to other commands. So we want to get this on our machines so it's much easier to use. But I wanted to mention that. So let's check. Let's see for this computer. See if there are any missing updates. So you run it, and it will take a little bit because it is going out and it's evaluating the catalog and checking everything that's installed, and it's going to enumerate any Microsoft updates that are missing. Now this includes drivers. It's not just security patches. It's literally any Microsoft updates that this machine currently does not have applied. So, you know, it can be printer drivers, all kinds of stuff. Because of that, you may, when you get ready to do your install, you may or may not want all of them. You may want to do some selection. Like right here, all 4 of these that we're seeing are driver based, right? None of these are security updates, right? So check for any, and I'm going to say, and apply any missing updates. So here's the thing. If I ran this and there were no results, that would mean there were none to be applied. Well, I wouldn't need to run the install command, right? But in this case, I do have some. So again, what are we going to do? We're going to use some if-then logic. Dun-dun. Else. So there's our logic format. And we're going to say if there are missing updates. Because see, if I run this and there are none, this will be null, which would cause a false condition, and it'd kick down to this else line, right? Now, everywhere else, I have been driving my action to the top by using a not. So I'm actually going to do that here just to keep my logic in the same sort of structure so that my action line is at the top. Right. Timestamp, install. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Because I want to enumerate how many. So I'm going to actually create a missing update count, right? And what I can do is I can do a get Windows update dot count. I'm going to show you how this works. So if I run this down here, if I just put my parentheses around it and put dot count on the end, what do you think is going to come out? 1, 2, 3, 4, right? Let's make sure that my logic is valid. I just like doing this because it's going to give you a little better message and information about what's going on right here by having this variable that is the count. Just waiting for it to run. Remember, when it does this, it has to go out, do that same fetching and evaluating the catalog, comparison, and then after it does it, it applies this .count to it to give us a count at the end, which I'm expecting will be 4, but we'll see. I have been wrong before. So, yep, 4. So what we're going to do is, instead of this just being, what I'm going to do is if we're going to change all of this logic right here. This is going to be if missing update count is greater than 0, right? So essentially, if there are any missing updates when it does the count, if that number is greater than 0, then it's going to run down this side. Else it's going to run down the other side. I'll go ahead and put my other success. No missing. Oops, my caps. There were no missing updates, right? There are, and then I'm going to put the missing update count updates that need to be installed. Right? And so if there are updates that need to be installed, we're then going to use the install Windows Update command. Install Windows Update, and then we're going to do the accept all, and we're going to do the ignore reboot, right? Pretty sure that's the install Windows Update. And yet, so I know that it's accept all and ignore reboot. What I'm doing here is, if any of these require a reboot or a reboot is suggested, it is not immediately going to right then reboot the machine. Generally, when you're running a script on the back end, you don't necessarily want to immediately reboot. What I do is I schedule a time for my updates to be installed, and I run a separate scheduled task that actually schedules the reboot, because that's going to, this install, as long as you have the ignore reboot, is not going to be production impacting or service impacting for that server. But when you do that reboot, it is going to be impacting. So I run this independent of my reboot schedules. So let's say, like, I could run this at 6 p.m. on a certain night, and I could schedule another script that looks to see if there's a pending reboot, and if so, reboot at 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock a.m., whatever makes sense for your environment. So, and that's for the server side, obviously. If I'm patching Windows workstations, man, I'll just schedule this, let this run in the background, and then whenever the users reboot their computers, that's fine with me. Or maybe I might give them a little nag message pop up if their machine is waiting for a reboot for it to be permanently applied. So we've got all of this written out. I'm going to test my logic, right? Let's see what it says when I run it. So I'm expecting that it's going to say install. There are 4 updates that need to be installed, it's then going to install those, right? And I should have put a little, maybe another right host after the install to just validate. But there is output to the screen. You'll see it. You'll see for each update, you'll see a line for the update being accepted, the update being downloaded, and the update being installed. So we'll wait for this to walk through its process, but you'll see that output down here. Okay, so see, it sees that there are 4 updates that need to be installed. Now it's going to kick off this install Windows update. It's going to do the accept all, and then it's going to install them, but ignore any reboot. And it will not reboot the machine. Yep, see, so it has accepted all 4. It's starting the download. You see the download for each one. I hope as I'm installing these video-related drivers that it doesn't impact my streaming. I didn't think about that, but that could happen. And then I've got a firmware update. So now it's doing the install, doing the installs. Okay, so it's finished the installs. So now all of my updates are installed. If I run this again, the exact same thing, I should now get a count of 0, right? And it should say there are no missing updates. That would be my expectation because it installed those. Let's see if that's a good or a bad assumption. I'm expecting that we will get a date timestamp with success. There were no missing updates. It will take a little bit because, like I said, it has to evaluate that catalog, do the comparison, and come back with the count. Ta-da! There were no missing updates. So after it has done this piece, I actually want to, because sometimes you do have a installation that tries, right, but fails, and it would say failed. So I want to do this next component of validation. And all I'm going to do here is I'm going to check this again. Because if we got down to here, obviously if it was not greater than 0 here, it's going to be not greater than here. So that's fine. But what we're trying to catch is if we ran this install, if after running that install we still have something that did not get applied, we're going to do a failed message. There are still missing update, and this is going to be final missing update count, right? We're going to take that out because this is just purely validation. And we do not have to have anything there. In fact, we can take this else out because the only side of it that we care about is if this was greater than 0, and it still is greater than 0, that we even want to have an indication. If we had no missing updates and we got down to here, we're not even going to run through this. So we don't care about the else side of this logic. And then what we would do is we would probably set some kind of failed. Actually, no. We can just use that same final missing update count, right? So we would write this output. And I like having the, let's put this in here. And this is where we would, we'd output our, we'd send a notification, an email, something like that. You know, a send -mail message or whatever method you want to use. This is the section in which I would write that. Those are really the main pieces I wanted to cover. Obviously, you may, some people may send a mail message. Some people may want to add an event in the event log. There's all kinds of different ways to do these notifications. That isn't really the piece that I wanted to focus on tonight. It was more the actual Windows Update components of the script. But those are the details. Let me just look and see if I don't see any questions or any messages in chat. You know, because PowerShell is pretty boring for, and there's only so many nerdy folks like myself that get excited about PowerShell. But that's the PowerShell lesson for tonight. I hope if you drop in, you enjoy it. Now I'm going to take another break, and I'm going to flip back over to do a little bit of Wormate before I call it a night. And you get to see how horrible I am at this game yet again. Yeah, look at that big score. That's an amazing, impressive score there, isn't it? When you got people getting 20 million. Oh, no. Let's retry. Let's try it. See if we can get in.
I'm just getting started.
Oh, look at that. Advertisements.
As a freelancer,
You gotta love them. Oh well. So tonight's not my night for Wormate. And on that note, I'll call it a night. Y'all have a great one.